That question hangs like a whisper drifting through a cathedral of silence, echoing off the cold stone walls of a galaxy steeped in eternal war. The Imperium celebrates its space marines as legends, immortal heroes, flawless warriors, holy instruments of the Emperor's will. Their stories are told in halls lit by devotional candles. Their statues tower over city plazas. Their names are carved into monuments that stretch so high they almost pierce the pollution-choked sky. To the countless billions of civilians who will never leave their home worlds, the Astartes are symbols of hope and safety. To the priests of the ecclesiarchy, they represent the Emperor's divine wrath made flesh. To the Imperial Guard, they are admired, envied, and feared in equal measure. But myths are beautiful lies. And lies have a way of hiding truths too brutal for ordinary minds to bear. Because behind the armor, behind the thunderous war cries and the angelic iconography, lies a life that no mortal would envy. A life of loss, isolation, indoctrination, and war without end. The galaxy sees the armor, the enhanced physique, the genetic divinity. It never sees the child who was stolen to create them. It never hears the screams that echo through the halls where their humanity is stripped away layer by layer. It never witnesses the moment when a future Astartes looks into a mirror and realizes he no longer recognizes the eyes staring back at him. The Imperium tells you space marines are perfect. But perfection has a price that only they pay, and pay forever. To understand the average space marine, you must first understand that there is no such thing as an average Astartes. Each one is engineered, sculpted, and broken into the shape of a weapon. There is no normal life for them. No ordinary day. No moment of peace. Their existence is carved from the bones of doctrine and tempered in the fires of war. They do not live like humans, and they are not allowed to think like them. They are the Emperor's wrath-given muscle and voice, but they are also his prisoners. And the galaxy will never tell you that. It won't tell you about the way a space marine stands apart from the world he protects, watching humans laugh, cry, celebrate, and fear, experiences he can barely remember ever having himself. It won't tell you about the weight of centuries pressing onto their shoulders, memories stacking like corpses until the oldest Astartes can no longer recall what it felt like to be a boy with dreams rather than a warrior with orders. It won't tell you how every breath they take is shaped by expectation, purpose, and devotion that isn't entirely their own but programmed into them through gene seed and indoctrination. You know the legend. Now, you will learn the truth. Because the truth is that a space marine's life does not begin with glory. It begins with the death of a child. A space marine's journey does not begin with honor, ceremony, or training. It begins with fear, raw, silent fear felt by a child who is too young to understand what is happening to him. In the Imperium, recruits are not chosen because they are strong, noble, or destined for greatness. They are chosen because they can be shaped, broken, and reforged. In the slums of hive cities, on feral worlds where survival is a daily battle, and across feudal planets where strength is prized above breath itself, a single moment determines a child's fate. The moment a towering figure in power armor points and says, "This one." Those two words end a childhood forever. The child does not get to say goodbye. He does not get to run back for a final embrace from the family he will never see again. He is taken, swiftly, efficiently, and without room for resistance. Some go willingly, believing they have been chosen for greatness. Others are dragged away kicking, screaming, and begging for their mothers. It does not matter. Once chosen, their future, and their past, belongs to the chapter. As the shuttle lifts from the surface of their homeworld, the child watches the only life he has ever known shrink into a patch of color and light, disappearing beneath clouds he will never fly through again. For many, this is the last memory of sunlight that belongs to them as a human being. Everything after this moment belongs to something else, a process that will erase their identity, rewrite their biology, and reshape their very soul. The indoctrination begins the moment they arrive. The Fortress-Monastery is unlike anything they have ever known, a labyrinth of stone, steel, cathedrals, barracks, and shadowed corridors filled with the sound of drills, chants, and the cold, metallic echo of boots. The air tastes of incense, disinfectant, and ancient dust. The walls themselves seem alive with the whispers of warriors who once walked them and the ghosts of those who never survived long enough to earn the right to be called Astartes. The children are lined up. Their names are recorded for the last time, not to preserve their history but to mark the moment when that history ends. Soon, their names will be replaced with ranks, designations, and honorifics. Their previous identity becomes irrelevant, a faint shadow buried under layers of conditioning and ritual. Some children cry, some look around with trembling awe. A few stand silent, resigned. But none of them realize they have already taken the first step toward becoming something that will never resemble the person they used to be. The initial tests are brutal. They are pushed to exhaustion, forced to fight, to run, to solve puzzles designed to overwhelm their minds, all while being evaluated by stern-faced warriors who show no sympathy. Many fail, many break, many simply collapse and never rise again. The weak are discarded, not killed, but sent away to become servitors or laborers, their failures etched into the chapters records like a cold footnote. For those who remain, survival becomes a daily struggle. They learn quickly that kindness is rare, rest is brief, and questioning orders is unthinkable. The instructors do not speak with encouragement. They speak with finality. They do not explain why something must be done, they simply demand it. Every moment is a test, every breath is a trial, and every hesitation is a warning that the child inside them still lives, and must be silenced. One by one, the recruits begin to forget the warmth of a parent's voice, the comfort of a home, or the innocence of play. Their memories fade not because they want them to, but because new memories, harsh, overwhelming, violent, crush the old ones beneath their weight. Childhood becomes a distant dream. Humanity becomes an obstacle. And the child who once looked at the stars with wonder will soon learn to look at them with orders. In the Imperium, a space marine is not born from greatness. He is born from the death of who he used to be. The transformation from frightened child to future Astartes does not happen gradually. It happens violently, mercilessly, and with an inevitability that leaves no room for hesitation. The moment a recruit reaches the implantation stage, where organs are inserted, bones reshaped, and blood itself rewritten, he begins the slow, irreversible death of his humanity. What remains afterward is something that resembles a human only in silhouette. The first surgeries are conducted in cold chambers lit by harsh lumen strips. Recruits lie strapped to metal tables, their bodies trembling under the bite of surgical restraints as robed apothecaries move around them with emotionless precision. The air hums with the buzz of machinery, the sharp scent of antiseptics, and the faint hint of blood that never seems to fully wash away. The children do not fully understand what is happening. They only know that this is the price of becoming a warrior. They are told it is an honor. They are not told how much of themselves must be lost to earn it. Organs are inserted one by one. Some allow them to remain conscious through trauma that would kill an ordinary human. Others twist their biology into something unrecognizable. Their hearts change. Their bones thicken. Their senses sharpen in ways that are as terrifying as they are miraculous. But each new enhancement takes something in return. A softness, a memory, a piece of identity too fragile to survive the intrusion of post-human engineering. The pain is indescribable. It does not merely hurt, it devours them. It consumes every corner of their awareness until the world becomes a blur of agony and sterile light. Some scream until their voices vanish. Some grit their teeth until they crack. Some simply stare upward at nothing, their minds traveling somewhere far away to escape what their bodies are being forced to endure. For every child who rises from the table stronger, at least one never wakes again. Those who survive begin to notice the changes quickly. Their emotions feel muted, as though someone layered thick glass between them and their own feelings. Anger sharpens easily, but joy becomes distant. Fear still lingers, but it is dulled, transformed into cold instinct rather than something that grips the heart. Their appetites change. Their sleep becomes shallow, restless, and filled with flashes of nightmares where they see their old selves fading into darkness. The indoctrination intensifies alongside the surgeries. Every day, the words of the Codex Astartes are recited until they burrow deep into the subconscious. Every night, they meditate before statues of fallen heroes until the image of perfection becomes an idol they must chase. Their instructors remind them again and again, a Space Marine does not falter. A Space Marine does not question. A Space Marine does not feel weakness. The children begin to recite these truths not because they believe them, but because repetition becomes instinct. Over time, they begin to lose their past. A recruit tries to remember the face of his mother and finds it fading like smoke. Another tries to recall the sound of his father's laugh but hears nothing but silence. Memories of home blur as though a veil has been drawn across them, leaving only fragments. The indoctrination does not physically remove their memories, it buries them under the weight of discipline, pain, and purpose until they are too distant to reach. At moments when the transformation is quiet, perhaps in the rare stillness of the dormitories, or during the silence before a grueling training session, a recruit might look down at his hands and feel a pang of confusion. They look like his hands, but they feel heavier, stronger, different. Almost as if they belong to someone else. Someone being shaped inside him like a ghost merging with flesh. The most chilling part comes when the instructors tell them to let go of the person they once were. They speak of the past as a taint, a vulnerability, a chain that must be broken. And the children listen, because the alternative is to fail. And failure means exile from the program, a fate often worse than death. Slowly, piece by piece, the child who arrived in the Fortress-Monastery begins to die, not through violence but through transformation. What rises in his place is not yet a Space Marine. But neither is it a human. It is something caught between, walking the thin line between life and purpose, identity and obedience, self and the shell that is being built to house something far greater, and far more terrifying. And so the first fracture appears, the point where humanity begins to slip away. By the time a recruit begins to recover from the agony of his earliest implants, a new phase of life unfolds, one that is quieter on the surface but far more sinister in its purpose. The Fortress-Monastery becomes not only a place of training and transformation, but a cathedral of obedience. Every hallway, every echoing chamber, every rigid schedule is designed to sculpt the mind as ruthlessly as surgery sculpted the body. A recruit soon learns that the Imperium does not merely create warriors. It creates servants, utterly loyal, unquestionably obedient, and incapable of dissent. Each day begins the same way, with a voice. A commanding tone that booms through the sleeping quarters, shattering the fragile rest that the modified body barely needs anymore. The recruits rise instantly, because hesitation is punished. They stand in perfect rows, eyes forward, expressions empty, as instructors pace before them like shadows carved from iron. The first words they hear each morning are not greetings, they are doctrines. Verses from the Codex Astartes. Oaths of loyalty. Mantras that bury themselves deeper into their subconscious with every repetition. The rituals become chains, subtle, invisible, unbreakable. Prayer is not optional. Meditation is not peaceful. Reflection is not personal. Each ritual is a test. In the dim light of chapels adorned with skull motifs and towering statues of fallen heroes, recruits kneel for hours, reciting lines that promise devotion, purity, and unwavering service. Their voices echo in perfect unison, a sound so practiced that it feels like a single will speaking through dozens of mouths. The instructors watch for any sign of wavering. A missed word, a trembling voice, a wandering gaze. Even the slightest slip is enough to earn punishment that leaves bruises on the flesh and scars on the mind. Emotions become dangerous. Joy is frivolous. Fear is shameful. Sadness is weakness. Anger, however, anger is useful, if properly controlled. And so recruits are taught to shape it like a blade, to sharpen it against imagined heretics, to grind it into a source of power. They are told to feel nothing, but paradoxically, they are told to channel rage when commanded. This paradox is one of the many fractures that begins to form beneath the surface of every recruit's psyche. Disobedience is not tolerated, even in thought. Chaplains walk the training halls like shadows wrapped in scripture, their presence a constant reminder that questioning is treason. Their skull-faced helms and booming voices are etched into memory as symbols of fear. When they speak, recruits fall silent. When they command, recruits obey without hesitation. The chaplains do not inspire. They enforce. They ensure that loyalty is not a choice but an instinct. Some recruits try to hold on to fragments of who they once were. A memory of a sibling. A moment of laughter. The face of a parent. But every ritual, every lecture, every chant presses down upon these fragments like a weight designed to crush them. Eventually, even the strongest memories begin to blur. The rituals do not erase identity, they smother it, burying it under layers of duty and expectation until the recruit no longer knows which thoughts are his own and which were carved into him by the chapter. Every night ends the same way it began, with doctrine. Recruits lie on their bunks, staring into the darkness, reciting lines under their breath until sleep claims them. By this stage, they no longer question why they do it. The rituals have become automatic, ingrained so deeply that even dreams are shaped by them. Nightmares of failure, visions of disapproval, echoes of instructors shouting orders. The mind becomes a battlefield where the last remnants of human emotion struggle against the crushing weight of indoctrination. And yet, for all the harshness, all the pressure, all the mental sculpting, there remains a truth the Imperium never admits. A Space Marine is loyal not because he chooses to be, but because he no longer knows how not to be. This is the life of obedience. The life of a recruit who is slowly forgetting what it meant to be human. As the recruits grow stronger, taller, and more distant from the children they once were, a strange new dynamic emerges, one that the Imperium romanticizes as Brotherhood, but which feels far more complicated from within. Outsiders imagine Space Marines as a tightly bound fraternity of warriors, a family forged in fire and faith. And while that image contains a sliver of truth, the reality is far darker. Brotherhood in the Imperium is not founded on love or friendship. It is founded on necessity, competition, and the silent understanding that weakness is death. The recruits train side by side every day. They bleed together, sweat together, and endure the brutal trials that push them far beyond normal human limits. Instructors often speak of unity, of loyalty to the squad, of the sacred bond between battle brothers. But unity does not mean closeness. Loyalty does not mean comfort. And the sacred bond is not forged through attachment, it is forged through shared suffering. Each recruit knows that the others beside him are also being shaped into living weapons. And weapons do not form friendships. They form functions. Yet, beneath the surface, something human still tries to survive. A recruit might feel a flicker of connection when another offers a rare nod of respect after a grueling bout. He might sense a strange kinship with the one who trains just as relentlessly, who refuses to break under pressure. These small, fragile sparks of camaraderie attempt to bloom into something more. But each one is quickly crushed by the environment they inhabit. Competition shadows every interaction. Instructors constantly compare performance. Who runs fastest, who fights hardest, who learns quickest. The unspoken truth becomes clear early on. The chapter will not keep everyone. Only the strongest, most disciplined, and most obedient will survive the full transformation. Every training session is a test, and every failure by one recruit highlights the successes of another. The recruits may stand side by side, but each knows he is being measured alone. Conversations are rare, laughter is non-existent. A recruit who speaks too much is reprimanded. A recruit who hesitates is punished. The barracks are filled with silent motions, putting on armor, sharpening blades, studying sacred texts, not with voices. The desire to connect, to bond, to hold onto something human, becomes a liability. Even small attempts at friendship die quickly, smothered by indoctrination and the fear that forming attachments will distract from perfection. This isolation grows heavier as they advance. Not because the instructors demand it, but because the recruits begin adopting it voluntarily. They internalize the belief that solitude is strength, and closeness is weakness. Brotherhood becomes something strange, a collective of isolated individuals who trust one another in battle but barely speak otherwise. They depend on each other's survival, but they do not depend on each other's presence. They fight as a unit, but they exist alone. Still, the contradiction lingers. They are told they are brothers, yet they rarely feel it. They are told they are one body, one will, one purpose, yet each recruit silently wrestles with doubts and fears that he dares not share with anyone else. The result is a hollow kind of kinship, one built not on affection, but on the knowledge that no one else in the galaxy will ever understand what they are becoming. And beneath it all lies an unspoken, unshakable fear. Failure does not mean punishment. Failure means transformation into something far worse. Every recruit knows of the servitors, the shambling, mindless cyborgs that wander the fortress performing tasks without a hint of awareness. They know that many servitors were once recruits who showed too much emotion, too much hesitation, or too little potential. The threat is never spoken aloud. It does not have to be. The servitors are reminders that the Imperium wastes nothing. Even failure is repurposed, so the recruits keep their emotions buried deep, hidden behind the mask of discipline. Brotherhood becomes a facade, necessary for war, hollow in daily life. Isolation is safer. Silence is protection. Distance is survival. And slowly, inevitably, the loneliness becomes part of them, settling into the spaces where their humanity once lived. There comes a moment in every recruit's life when the walls of the Fortress-Monastery no longer feel like the entire universe. When the stone corridors, prayer halls, and training grounds, harsh as they are, suddenly seem almost safe compared to what lies beyond them. This moment arrives without fanfare. No ceremony, no speeches, no gentle preparation. Just an order. A single command that echoes through the barracks like a sentence being passed. It is time for deployment. For months, even years, the recruits have heard instructors speak of war as though it is a sacred scripture. They have memorized the tactics, the formations, the combat doctrines. They have practiced with weapons until calluses formed on hands that are no longer truly human. They have been molded into something like warriors. But training, no matter how brutal, is still a controlled environment. And beyond the monastery walls, nothing is controlled. Nothing is safe. Nothing is predictable. The shuttle ride to the battlefield is the first time the recruits see the stars not through stained glass windows of chapels, but directly through reinforced metal viewports. The void stretches endlessly, cold and infinite, a reminder that everything they once knew, sunlight, warmth, home, is so small it barely matters. Around them, the silence is broken only by the hum of engines and the strained breaths of recruits trying to hide their fear. But fear is not forbidden today. Today, for the first time, it is expected. The instructors speak little during the transit. Their presence alone is enough to steady, or terrify, the recruits. Each one knows that this deployment is not a test of their strength. It is a test of their future. Some who leave the monastery today will return stronger. Some will return shattered. Some will not return at all. And those who die will be remembered only as failed candidates, their names forgotten, their bodies repurposed. The orbital descent is the moment everything changes. The roar of the dropship is deafening. The metal shell around them shakes violently as atmosphere tears past. Artificial gravity presses against their chests, making breath come shallow and forced. The recruits clutch their restraints, not because they fear death, but because instinct demands it. Even enhanced bodies feel the crushing pressure of entry. The world below grows closer, its surface blurred by clouds and the glow of firestorms. Then the doors open. Heat hits first, searing, choking, heavy. Then light, too bright, too violent. The ground trembles with distant explosions. The air tastes of ash and burning metal. Smoke rises in thick pillars, turning the sky into a smothering canopy of gray and red. The recruits stumble out, their post-human senses overwhelmed by the chaos. The sound of gunfire rattles the earth. Screams echo from somewhere unseen. The smell of blood fills the air long before they see its source. This is their first battlefield. And it is already dying. Orders are shouted. Formations change. Veteran Astartes move with terrifying calm, their steps purposeful and steady. The recruits follow, clumsy by comparison but driven by instinct and fear. Their training takes over, every drill, every lecture, every strike practiced 1,000 times. They push forward even when their hearts race, even when their stomachs knot with dread. The first kill is not glorious. It is not cinematic. It is not heroic. A recruit raises his bolter, hands trembling despite the genetic modifications coursing through him. The target is a twisted, malformed creature, some xenobreed whose name he does not yet know. It lunges, snarling, and instinct forces the trigger pull. The recoil slams through his arm. The round tears into the creature's chest, exploding in a spray of gore and bone. The body collapses mid-charge, twitching violently before falling still. For a moment, everything goes quiet inside him. It isn't pride. It isn't triumph. It's something colder, an emptiness, a numbness that feels like the echo of something dying inside. He has taken a life for the first time. He has crossed a threshold he cannot return from. Around him, the battle intensifies. Veterans shout commands. Recruits stumble forward. The ground shakes with explosions. The sky burns. And amid all of it, the recruit tries to process what he has just done. Not the act of killing, but the way it felt. Or rather, the way it didn't feel. Doubt flickers. Brief, fragile, dangerous. Is this what he is becoming? A weapon that kills without feeling. A machine shaped to obey, no matter the cost. The thought lasts only a second. A single heartbeat. Then an instructor's voice cuts through the chaos, ordering him forward. Instinct overrides emotion. Training buries doubt beneath the urgency of survival. The first taste of war is bitter, heavy, and unforgettable. But it is only the beginning. The battlefield does not forgive hesitation. The first kill leaves a mark deeper than flesh, one that cannot be cauterized with training or gene seed. In the quiet moments between engagements, the recruits begin to notice a gnawing presence inside their minds, an awareness that their humanity is slipping faster than anyone ever warned them. Memories of home, of laughter, of family, of warmth, flicker like distant stars and fade under the constant glare of war. Each time they take another life, those memories recede further into shadow, leaving only the weight of duty and the instinct to survive. Nightmares begin, even while awake. The recruits see echoes of those who did not survive implantation. Faces twisted in fear, bodies broken beyond recognition, screams that no one hears anymore. Sometimes, the dead appear in the heat of battle, not literally, but in the corner of the eye, in the quick twitch of a shadow, in the hesitation of a trigger finger that freezes for an instant too long. Each hesitation is a whisper that asks questions they dare not speak aloud. Am I still human? Did I ever have a choice? Even the act of killing becomes morally corrosive. The Imperium demands obedience, yet every order carries a moral weight the recruits cannot entirely suppress. Targets that resemble humans, panicked civilians, defenseless Xenos fleeing before the bolter fire, haunt the edges of their minds. Each life taken is justified by doctrine, yet each justification feels hollow, like a thin sheet stretched over a chasm of unease. Guilt is a dangerous companion, but it lingers anyway, whispered in dreams and half-forgotten memories. The psychological fracture deepens as recruits witness the consequences of hesitation. Brothers in arms fall, not to enemy fire, but to the unforgiving discipline of the chapter. A hesitation in the line of fire. A misjudged maneuver. A thought that strays too far from obedience. Punishment is swift, brutal, and final. Some survive with scars, both physical and mental. Others are taken away, never to return. Each incident becomes a silent lesson. Perfection is demanded, and imperfection is punished, often without mercy. In private, in moments when their armor is removed and the night is quiet, the recruits begin to confront the terrifying reality of their existence. They are not merely warriors. They are instruments. They are tools of destruction shaped to obey without question. Any flicker of selfhood, curiosity, empathy, doubt, is a liability. And yet, those flickers persist, small and fragile, like sparks struggling in a gale. Each one is a potential fracture, a seed of rebellion, a ghost of the person they once were. And the more they see, the more they understand. In this galaxy, obedience is survival. Morality is optional. Compassion is a weakness. Humanity is a luxury they cannot afford. And the irony is suffocating. The very qualities that once made them human are exactly what the Imperium demands they bury, even as it praises them for their perfection. By the time the first campaign ends, the recruits are no longer children. They are no longer human. They are something in between, teetering on the edge of what they once were and what the Imperium has made them. They have learned to kill, to follow, to survive. But inside, in the silent chambers of the mind, the seeds of doubt and guilt have taken root, ready to grow into fractures that may never fully heal. The reality becomes inescapable. The life of a space marine is not measured by victory, by medals, or by glory. It is measured by the cost it extracts from the soul, and by the quiet, persistent erosion of everything that once made one human. Once the recruits have survived their first campaigns, the Fortress-Monastery reclaims them, not as children, not even as soldiers, but as tools. Life settles into a rhythm that outsiders would envy, a disciplined order of purpose and efficiency. But for the Space Marine, this rhythm is a cage, and its bars are invisible. Days and nights blur together, indistinguishable. Missions, training, and prayer repeat endlessly, forming a cycle that stretches into years, decades, centuries. War becomes a constant, an unyielding tide. Glory exists, but it is fleeting, hollow, and secondary to survival and obedience. Each day begins with the same rituals, the same prayers, the same drills. Every morning, the Astartes rise before dawn, their bodies already honed to superhuman efficiency. They engage in physical training so rigorous that pain has become a constant companion, not a signal to stop but a sign of endurance. They study strategy, tactics, and the holy texts of the Codex Astartes, internalizing lessons that will be tested on battlefields that rarely forgive mistakes. Sleep is minimal, often fragmented by the relentless demands of duty. The body is strengthened, the mind is sharpened, the soul is reshaped. Even in the monotony, war finds them. Entire worlds burn, alien species are exterminated, heretics are purged. The Astartes marches through the carnage as if moving through a dream, yet the dream is relentless, vivid, and filled with the scent of blood. Each mission brings the same mixture of fear and necessity, repetition and novelty. They know that any failure, even a hesitation for a fraction of a second, could mean the death of a comrade, the destruction of a planet, or their own demise. The weight of perfection is unrelenting. And in the rare moments of solitude, the toll becomes visible. Memories of childhood and lost humanity surface briefly, only to be drowned out by discipline and indoctrination. Companionship with battle brothers is functional, not comforting. Even loyalty is mechanical, conditioned, reinforced by doctrine and reinforced by fear. The Space Marine exists not to live, but to serve, to obey, to execute. His individuality fades under centuries of ritual, training, and combat. He becomes a weapon, a guardian, an extension of the Emperor's will, but not a man. The irony of immortality becomes apparent. Centuries stretch like shadows. The same missions recur across different worlds, the same faces vanish, the same orders repeat. Battles once thought decisive are replaced by endless campaigns. Victory is temporary. Death is avoided but never forgotten, not for enemies, nor for the brothers in arms who fall beside them. Time loses meaning, identity becomes fluid. And amid it all, the Space Marine is left to wonder, if life is an endless cycle of war and obedience, what does it truly mean to exist? The routine is brutal, unyielding, and inescapable. The Astartes learns to accept it, not with joy, not with hope, but with a cold, pragmatic understanding. Emotions are dangerous. Curiosity is dangerous. Questions are dangerous. Only perfection, discipline, and obedience are safe. And even those are never guaranteed. In the Imperium, life is measured not by years, but by survival, and survival comes at a cost so immense it is almost invisible, the death of the self. In the Fortress-Monastery, the chaplain is both guide and judge, a figure whose presence alone can instill reverence and terror. Clad in black armor adorned with skulls, his voice booming through hollowed halls, he embodies the Emperor's will in a form that is equal parts spiritual and punitive. To the average Space Marine, the chaplain is more than a mentor, he is a constant reminder that even perfection can be scrutinized, and even loyalty can be questioned. Every action, every thought, every fleeting hesitation is subject to observation. The chaplain watches, not with the gentleness of guidance, but with the precision of judgment. Confession is not a place for comfort, it is an interrogation. Questions are layered with the weight of doctrine, designed to reveal impurity, doubt, or disobedience. The Marine cannot lie, yet he cannot fully confess either, for the boundaries of truth and survival are blurred. Any hint of moral wavering could be his undoing. The chaplain enforces discipline not only through fear, but through psychological mastery. He reminds the Marines that emotion is treachery. Compassion is weakness. Mercy is forbidden. Even the flicker of doubt can be weaponized against a brother, turned into evidence of spiritual failing. Punishment is swift. Sometimes it is corporal, sometimes ritualistic, sometimes existential, and always public enough to serve as warning. Every lesson, every reprimand, every ceremony reinforces the unyielding reality. To question the Emperor, or the chapter, is to court annihilation. And yet, paradoxically, the chaplain is also the one who teaches them devotion. He instructs them in prayer, meditation, and the sacred texts, invoking the Emperor's presence in every syllable. He teaches them that their life is not their own, that their actions serve a purpose beyond personal desire. It is an existence of extremes, fear and faith, punishment and enlightenment, death and purpose. The chaplain is the bridge between humanity and the machinery of war, a constant reminder that the Marines are not fully alive, nor fully dead. For the average Space Marine, the shadow of the chaplain is a companion that never leaves. His presence shapes thought, guides action, and enforces obedience. The Marine learns to anticipate judgment, to hide any flicker of weakness, to align his very instincts with the unspoken rules of perfection. Even when the chaplain is not physically present, the memory of his gaze lingers, a silent, ever watchful witness to every decision, every movement, every heartbeat. It is in this environment, under the shadow of such authority, that the Space Marine begins to understand the ultimate cost of service. Obedience is not just expected, it is enforced at the level of body, mind, and spirit. And in learning this, the Marine also begins to realize the truth that the Imperium never admits: the Emperor does not need loyal soldiers. He needs tools. And the chaplain ensures that those tools are honed to perfection, regardless of the cost to the soul. There comes a mission unlike any the average Space Marine has experienced, one that strips away the layers of doctrine and drills and reveals the raw, unsettling truth of his existence. The orders are simple: in theory, purge a world. The problem is not strategy, not strength, not weaponry. The problem is reality. This world is not a barren battlefield or an alien stronghold. It is alive with humans, flesh, blood, families, and children, ordinary people who have been judged guilty of heresy by the distant edicts of the Imperium. As the Space Marine descends into the chaos of war, he sees the panic in the eyes of those he has been commanded to exterminate. Their fear mirrors the fear he once felt as a child, ripped from his home, dragged into the hands of those who would shape him into a weapon. The screams of the innocent echo like a haunting refrain, reminding him that the enemy is not always the creature with claws or the alien with fangs. Sometimes, the enemy is the moral certainty imposed by an empire that values obedience over conscience. Every step forward is a battle against instinct and conditioning. His training demands compliance. His loyalty demands obedience. His humanity, what little remains, urges him to hesitate. The contradictions tear at him internally, invisible wounds that leave no blood but consume the mind. He has killed before, yes. But never with the faces of innocence pressed into his memory, never with the knowledge that his actions serve no justice, only doctrine. Orders are shouted, blasters discharge, buildings burn, civilians flee into alleys, into rubble, into the nothingness of extinction. He moves through the carnage, executing commands with mechanical precision, yet each kill brings a new pang, a silent question, is this right? The words of the Codex Astartes echo in his mind, obedience above all, but even they falter against the raw humanity that refuses to die entirely. The Marines around him act without hesitation. They are perfected, conditioned to a single purpose, immune to doubt. But the average Marine begins to feel the first tremors of rebellion, not loud, not vocal, but deep and personal. Every step he takes feels heavier, every action more deliberate. He starts to see the cost of obedience, not in medals or commendations, but in lives snuffed out, in families erased, in innocence destroyed. This is the mission that shatters illusion, the one that teaches him the true weight of perfection and loyalty. Here, he understands a terrifying fact: the Imperium does not value the soul of its space marines, and it certainly does not value the lives of the weak, the innocent, or the questioning. Here, he learns that survival, obedience, and victory are meaningless if they come at the price of the very essence of what it means to be alive. For the first time, the Marine confronts an impossible question: is obedience worth this? And even as the answer threatens to rise, even as his mind protests, he moves forward, caught between duty and conscience, between the weapon he has become and the human he has almost forgotten he was.